Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy. So what are we talking about?
We are talking about Richard Henry Patterson. He's 65 and he's from Florida. We're going to call this one Well Endowed. So we're just going to jump on into it. Richard choked his girlfriend to death while she was performing oral sex. This happened in October 2015. He went with the rough sex defense. His attorney petitioned the judge to show his penis to the jury so they could understand just how well endowed he was. So the rough sex defense is actually a defense that multiple people use. The victim dies by accident during consensual sexual activity, but you have to prove that it's consensual.
That's an actual excuse?
Yeah. People have used it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Dr. Donald Wright, an expert witness for the former Broward County medical examiner, he testified that her death was consistent with being accidentally sexually asphyxiated during oral sex. So,
no, I don't see how that happens. Not to say I get when they're strangled, but I kind of get when people will do the strangulation thing to themselves. But the whole dick choking thing, I'm having not a hard time visualizing it, but it's a long time to choke to death accidentally.
Doesn't it take 3 to 4 minutes to choke to death? I mean,
I feel like it's worth Googling.
You would think she would be hitting, fighting back, biting something to signal that she's in distress, but apparently she did not. Her 41-year-old son, I feel sorry for him because I would not want to hear that our mother passed away.
Whoa. 41? Yeah. How old is she?
She was 60. He was 65. Her name is Francesca, and her son is Omar, and he described his mother as kind, friendly, and independent. He says that his mother never let on that there was any kind of distress in the relationship because the prosecution was thinking that he was just using this very absurd way of explaining how she died. But Francesca's neighbor said 2 days prior to her death, they overheard her and Richard arguing, and she was trying to break up with him. So it comes into question whether or not you believe that she could have possibly rekindled the relationship. But Patterson called his attorney before he called police, and his attorney's the one that contacted police about where her body was. So that's awfully suspicious because you would think if something happened to your significant other that you would call 911 to try to help them. The autopsy came back as no visible trauma, no bruising on the neck, but the body was already in an early stage of decomposition, so it made bruising more difficult to detect. I don't understand how there is no time frame that I could find between when she passed away and when the police found her. I don't know if he waited to see if she would be found, but if she was already in early stages of decomposition, that makes me think that she'd been there for a little while. And then the medical examiner ended up being unable to reach a cause and manner of death. So he couldn't officially rule out how she died. But he did text
do any reports on if she was on any drugs?
There was nothing in her system. So she wasn't drunk, wasn't high. She was completely sober.
Because it seems weird that how do you strangle and there's no, you didn't struggle? Nothing?
Nothing. It's interesting, right? He also texted his daughter, and I quote, "I did something bad." So what seems fishy to me is that he didn't call police right away. He called an attorney, and then he started telling people that he did, like, you're telling your daughter you did something bad. And he also told a friend, I choked her. Yeah. And then he also told a friend, I choked her. I choked Francesca. To me, that doesn't sound like it was an accident, because all of his actions after she died were not to try to help her. Does that make sense? And then his attorney turned around and played the word games thing, where he said he choked her. He never said he strangled her. So that was his defense of it was an accident. And this apparently happens as a defense quite often. And by often, I mean more than once. A British man named Philip Martins attempted the identical defense as Richard Patterson in 2011, but he was found guilty and is serving a life sentence right now. The trial for Richard Patterson took 1 week in May of 2017. The jury took 5 hours to deliberate, and they found him not guilty. He tried the same defense of choking his girlfriend or wife to death with his penis, and he was found guilty. But Richard Patterson was found
he must have had a small penis, and the jury didn't believe she could choke on it. like, come on. If the guy with the long penis had to show the jury, they saw it and went, yep, choking hazard. Then the guy with the little penis, they had to be like, that's not even possible. Next.
Well, it's not funny because poor Francesca did die. However, Urban Dictionary, which was not one of my sources, it was just an entertaining follow-up, now has a Richard Henry Patterson vocab as part of their Urban Dictionary vocabulary, and it's defined as the act of asphyxiating your partner during oral sexual activity until quote accidental death. And then you know how they use their word in a sentence? Their wording in the sentence is, I gave her the good old Richard Henry Patterson, and now I'm on trial for murder. So
it's a weird sentence for one, but it does make me curious about the origins of a Dirty Sanchez. Just saying.
I have not heard that one before. So
I'm not saying I have heard the origins, but it piques my curiosity.
Yes. We might have to brush up on our Urban Dictionary vocabulary. Well,
I don't know if it's one I want to run down.
It's called investigating. And the other one's found guilty. But at the same time, it could be because they couldn't determine a cause of death because she was already decomposing.
I would be curious the time frame for that.
I couldn't find anything on it. I did look, but I think really all I could find on this case was the big meaty stuff. Because it's such an absurd defense that I think people are only interested in like the big chunky details and not like the
how long did he leave her? Curious? Doesn't it kind of make you curious the length of which we're talking about?
It does.
Like, not to be the pervert in the room.
100% or not. I just did.
So. But I just, sounds absurd. I don't even know how you can get off with that. No pun intended. I also don't know how I'd feel if that's how Mom died.
I know. I really feel bad for Francesca because she's dead, but I couldn't imagine being her kid and having the cops go, hi, we hate to tell you this, but your mom has passed away. And of course, your natural reaction is how? And then to find out that she choked on dick.
Well, I don't even understand. It'd be interesting to have been that jury because I don't understand how she had. Seriously, if she didn't have anything defensive, that even if you choke on like a grape or I mean, you're gonna move around, try to save yourself, but she just kept going like a champ and conked out.
I guess.
Like,
And he didn't think to remove it? Because, you pass out before you actually die, which means he just kept going after she was limp and slack-jawed.
And even if they were participating in a game of she was tied up and he was just having at her face, that you'd think her wrists would be bruised or something. Or maybe he had really padded cuffs, I don't know, and didn't leave marks. But I would think even padding would have left something. But it just, and even if she was tied up, bite the shit off.
Right. That was mine. Well, I don't get it because I love my husband, but if I was choking to death, that shit's getting bit. Well, I know that was a short one, so to follow it up, I found another one that was slightly crazy. Nobody dies in this one, so feel free to laugh as much as you like. I titled this one, the last one was Well Endowed. This one's Have a Seat. These are all in Florida. Nothing against Florida, just
like
saying.
All the dick choking ones or the ones you got now?
The two that I'm doing right now are both located in Florida. Don't mind the train going by. This one I titled Have a Seat. This is about Amy Parrino. She was 44. She was accused of sitting on her boyfriend's face and injuring him in various ways. Amy was an assistant embalmer at a mortuary. And then her boyfriend, Zachary Berger, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. He tried to stay anonymous, claimed Amy was becoming more violent in their relationship. And then one night, Amy stripped down butt naked and started chasing Zachary around their home on December 2nd, 2018. There it is. She hit him with a belt, a brass plate, a cell phone, and an open and closed fist up to 25 times. So it's pretty rough. Interesting that she decided to beat him while she was naked. She chased him around and... Do what?
Was it an iPhone?
Did not specify.
I feel like because it's a $1,200 phone that, like, I have nearly lost my life trying to save it from falling. So I couldn't imagine the mindset you have to be to beat somebody with a $1,200 phone. Or was it a flip phone?
Don't know. We'll have to check that out further. I'll put that task on you.
Somebody with that.
Well, she's said to have cornered him on the ground, pinned him to the floor, sat on his face, and screamed, "Eat my pussy."
Sounds like some sexual frustration going on in that relationship. And I can honestly say, never in my life have I had an argument that I've wanted to corner my significant other and then rub my junk in his face. Do we have sizes? Like, is she a big woman and he's really little? Like, I have so many questions right now. I'm picturing a tiny man.
I do have pictures of her. We'll get to that in a second. I don't know what he looks like because, like I said, he tried to remain anonymous, but there are some court documents that I found, and his name is on that. So, sorry, Zachary. Threw it out there.
He was afraid that pussy was going to come back at him. He had to hide.
Pretty much, because he did say he was afraid of what she would do next. So Zachary apparently said he felt sick to his stomach and told Amy to leave him alone. And she demanded he perform oral sex. He called 911 and poor traumatized Zachary was telling police he could not breathe as Amy's genitals smothered his mouth.
What was this during? Was it no? Was this during the 911 call? Like he's muffled, like I can't. Like, is that how that one went?
I have no idea. Oh my God.
And then I have a question also. When he said he didn't feel well because he ate too much.
Like, he didn't say he ate too much. He said he felt sick to his stomach. So I question any bodily odors or what was going on that made him sick to his stomach.
Well, that's what I was asking, if it was just like being force-fed, he had a stomach ache, or the stomach ache was due to the argument.
Who knows? Respect your significant other's boundaries. If they say they don't feel good, no means no, man or woman.
Don't
I do not condone domestic abuse.
Whether it's beating with an iPhone or not, or forced
or
oral.
Choking on a dick.
So there's a long
responding
list,
officers reported. Responding officers reported that he did have 2 cuts, one on each arm. Both were 3 to 4 inches long. He had a cut on the bridge of his nose from Amy sitting on his face. She split his nose open.
Holy shit.
I feel like her and Richard from the previous story should get together because they could have themselves a good time.
They'd both be dead. Like, it'd be a good time would be right. They'd go out with a bang, I guess. What the hell?
Well, I guess it'd be a bang bang instead of just a singular bang. But they also reported he had red marks on his chest from the belt beating her. In her mugshot, Amy has a mohawk with shaved sides to her head, and she has lots of tattoos. Nothing against tattoos. I like tattoos and mohawks. I'm just describing the image for you. She is a heavier set woman. Amy was charged with 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse and 1 count of third-degree domestic assault. She was arrested that night, which was, what did I say, December 2nd, 2018. And she remained in jail until September 2019. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison for an assault charge, but the judge halted the term and gave Amy 5 years probation. And the sexual abuse charge was dropped. I feel like that one is the one that probably should have stuck around. And Amy had been in jail since she'd been in jail since December 2018. The judge decided that was long enough and went ahead and released her. So
I could see where they didn't send her to jail because she'd get exactly what she sought out to do. And she'd get eaten a whole lot. So they were like, this is not a punishment. Do not send her in there. Absolutely not. What kind of punishment is that?
I do feel sorry for her boyfriend because that is an embarrassing... Because I feel like you don't hear about a lot of domestic violence from women against men. And to have to call the police and say that your girlfriend is trying to suffocate you with her vagina is just... That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then to have it go to trial and have to testify. Like...
Yeah. That's why I feel like he had to have been a smaller man, because it just added to the embarrassment of he couldn't defend himself. She cornered him and had at it.
It's kind of interesting because there's a couple cases like this that are very similar to this one.
Well, there are little men out there.
Most of those men, their women were 250 pounds or heavier, and the men were on the lighter side of 150. So most of these women outweighed the men by about 100 pounds or more. So, and they were very similar in height. So, very interesting.
I do think there's like a little bit of a dynamic change sometimes when it's somehow not okay for it to be the other way around. Like sexual assault wise, people don't think a guy can be sexually assaulted by a woman.
Yeah. I think it's because it's more embarrassing because of the way society is. So you don't really hear about it too often. But we're bringing awareness to it. And I realized we were laughing.
So we weren't crying.
But it's more or less just the... yes, laughing so we're not crying. But, yeah. So that's all I got.
Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.